Hello there, Saga players. It's Joe here from Northern Tempest with a report on our recent Broken Oaths Saga tournament. So, Broken Oaths was an idea I had really to do something rather different with a Saga tournament. I like to change things up and do things differently. So this was a doubles tournament, but you don't sign up with one other player. You're randomly placed with another player. And you have to make the best of your alliance in battling your opponents. And of course, as the points work out during the tournament, you could be facing against your former ally in the next game. So made it quite interesting, quite good fun. Really seemed to enjoy this event, everyone there, and yeah, we had some great games out of it. And luckily, because Jim was doing the scoring this time, I got to play, so I can tell you a little bit about some of the games that I had. So the first game up was crossing the frozen river. Now, I'd chosen the scenarios for this event, and I was aware that they need to be simplified a little bit because doubles games do take a long time to play. So crossing the frozen river was meant to be fairly simple because you're just counting the points across the river at the end. Don't need to worry too much about counting up huge numbers of points. It's just about getting across the river. So simple objective. There was also a secondary objective between each team, so that the player on that team who got most points across the river was going to get 2 bonus points. So it was worth going for. And in this case, I was partnered with Andras. I had Moors, and I had in my list 1 point of levy with crossbows, 3 points of warriors, all on foot, spear and shield guys. And Andras had Carolingians, which are a popular faction for this event. I think he had 12 levy with javelins, 8 warriors with bows, 4 Hearthguard on foot, and 8 warriors on foot, I believe. Now we were partnered with each other, crossing the river. Our opponents were Robbie, who had Sassanids with 2 elephants in the list, which is pretty scary looking. You had 2 units of 6 levy protecting the elephants, and a unit of 8 warriors mounted with composite bows, and Gray, who had Picts with 2 units of mounted Hearthguard with javelins, warlord and chariots with javelins, 12 levy crossbows, and 8 warriors on foot. So that's quite a lot of shooting we were facing, me and Andras. And luckily, Moors not bad with shooting defence, and Carolingians could have some good shooting defence, and they can shoot a lot themselves. So we thought this might be tough. We're going to suffer a lot of losses to shooting, but we can try and make the best of it and cross the rivers. Luckily, we had the first turn, which seemed to be pretty good for this one. So Andras took one of the bridges on the left, and I took the one on the right. It seemed fairly simple for the split for this one. We both moved up, tried to get onto the bridge as far as we could and get some defensive ability in place. Then Robbie and Gray on their turns, they had just advanced as well. They weren't able to manoeuvre quite as far because we'd moved up, so they couldn't get that free manoeuvring. So they're using the dice for some moving up. And Gray, bold as picked should be, went forward with his Hearthguard mounted to try and block the bridges and try and get some shots on us. So when it came around to our turns, really we had to try and lay into these picked Hearthguard. So I charged one unit, managed to really knock them down to one model, I think, and shoot off the last guy. So I managed to wipe them out, and Andras with his shooting was able to kill out the other units, apart from one guy who managed to escape. So really we come off really well there. Our dice were red hot in that game, and Gray's were very poor. He couldn't make any saves in his shooting. Neither could Robbie in this game. So they were losing a lot of shooting, considering the Picts and Sassanids can throw out a lot of shots, a lot of shooting. They were not doing too well with their shooting this time. We were managing to save lots. Moors have some pretty good defensive shooting abilities. The hasty shots to get 2 defensive dice and give fatigues to the enemy who's shooting at me, and wholehearted so I can get extra couple of shooting dice. So I was able to get quite a lot of shooting defence, and I was not losing very much. So whittling away the enemy units, and really they struggled to get us off the bridge when we got there first. So we were able to make those extra steps forward. So Robbie had 2 elephants, which are really scary. Of course, he knows the limitations of elephants, that they're vulnerable to shooting. So he had them protected with these 2 6-man levy units, one in front of each elephant. One elephant on the left-hand bridge, and one was heading for the right-hand bridge. So luckily, I was able to attack that levy unit defending one, and managed to take that out, and really so the elephant was more vulnerable there, and to sort of throw some shots into it. And on the left hand bridge, Andras managed to shoot out the levy guarding the elephant, and then he, using the massed shooting of the Carolingians with that ardour ability to shoot lots of times without fatigue, he was able to take down that elephant, and he managed to shoot out the warriors mounted on that side as well. So there wasn't much on that left-hand bridge, and Andras could march his entire force nearly across the bridge on that side. I struggled a bit more on my bridge because the elephant I couldn't kill, and Gray came in with his warriors, and his levy crossbows were shooting at me and picking me off a little bit. So I still managed to get across the bridge, and he wasn't able to fight off himself. And so me and Andras took the win there, and Andras had a lot more than me, so he had the big side of that win. So as I say, it was a pretty scary combination, Picts and Sassanids, but in the end, when their shooting dice were not very effective at all, we were able to weather all the shooting and shoot back, and ours was doing more damage. And of course, the Moors are pretty good in defence. Actually, once they get in position, they were quite hard for them to force back. So we took the win on that game. So on to game 2. Now, the way the format of the day had worked out, it was we were arranging the next pairings by points, and it was going to be the top-ranked player on points was going to play in an alliance with the third-ranked player on points, and then the second-ranked player on points was going to be an opponent of them combined with the fourth-ranked player. So that's how it's worked out, and so on through the rest of the points. It's kind of a modified Swiss chess system to match up people against each other for the games. Did mean, of course, you needed 4 people to have these double games, sets of 4, and we actually had 14 people playing on the day, so we didn't divide into 4, so it meant that 2 people were playing a singles game during the day. So we tried to vary that so it wasn't the same one person each time. So they were playing the same scenario, but a singles 1v1 game. And on this occasion, I would be one of the people playing a 1v1 game, and I was paired against Sam, young Sam, with the Romans, his first Saga tournament. And so the scenario for this time was called the Queen's Treasure. Now, this is a modified version of Feasting and Pillaging, which I created for this event. I was trying to strip down feasting and pillaging to make it really, really simple. So it's going to be quick to play. So there's no counting survival points. It's purely about the objectives and seizing them, and there were actually 5 different objectives to seize. So I want to make it kind of a few to fight over, because it was a thought that there was going to be 2 people on each side playing. So we played the same scenario. In this case, I was playing a 1v1. So the 5 things to get, 5 objectives, and of course we only had 4-point warbands each, because the whole day was playing with a 4-point warband. So I had the Moors, of course. Sam had Romans, so he had with Romans 4 half guard were mounted. There were 10 warriors with bows, 7 warriors on foot with hand weapons, another 7 warriors with hand weapons on foot. Now I see, because there were so many objectives there, I thought I'm going to have to split some of my force into smaller units to try and grab them. So I actually had deployed a unit of 4 warriors, a unit of 6 warriors, 2 7s of warriors, and then the 12-man levy crossbows. So it meant I had those 4 units of warriors to be able to get the objectives. And I was playing the first turn, so I actually managed to get 3 of the 4 objectives, moving up and grabbing 3 of them on the first turn. So Moors have the great ability Perseverance. I managed to roll a 6 with my 3 dice in the first turn, which meant I could put the rare symbol on that Perseverance and activate 3 units. So manoeuvres and then Perseverance to activate 3 3-foot units, and managed to walk up and grab 3 of the objectives. So it's really good. So Sam would have to bring the fight to me and try and move fast. And I knew that Romans weren't too fast, especially not when they only had 1 mounted unit. So I hoped I was going to hold on to those objectives. So he moved up, and of course he used his combined formation to get some shots on me, even though he wasn't anywhere near, because he had one of his warrior units moving up, and the bow-armed warriors really stayed behind a wood the whole time, didn't get anywhere near me, but they didn't need to, because that combined formation meant they could shoot me from a distance. But I was still able to defend against that. With hasty shots, I think, so I didn't take any casualties. So he started coming up, bringing up his mounted unit to near to an objective. My turn 2, I managed to get another objective, and now I had 4 objectives, put on a bit of defensive abilities, really, and try and start moving backwards. And so his turn, he sees that I've got 4 objectives, and he really needs to chase me down. So his four Hearthguard, instead of going for an objective, they actually charged one of my units. So he played that really well. Went in for the charge. With in this sign conquer, get 4 auto hits, and absolutely battered me and seized the treasure and really whittled that warrior unit down to like 2 guys left over, so they were not an effective unit anymore, not generating a saga dice. And he don't think he lost any of his Hearthguard in that, but they had the treasure and they were quite near me. So I moved up, try and get some shots on with my crossbows. I think I killed a couple of them, but there were 2 left alive. So on his turn, he was moving away. I still had 3 objectives, so I was still comfortable, really, those 3. But he had one of them, and thought he could turn it around if he can chip one off me and grab another one himself. And one of his warrior units was heading for another objective. So I managed to get my crossbows to shoot again at. Couldn't quite reach the Hearthguard on mounted who were running away with an objective. So instead, I shot at the warrior unit that was going for another objective and kind of whittled them down. So there was only 3 of them left with some good shooting there. And my warlord actually charged the 2 Hearthguard up for a bit of a laugh, really, a bit crazy. But went in, killed the 2 Hearthguard, grabbed their treasure, and my warlord was kind of in the middle of the table on his own, but he had a treasure. So then Sam sent, of course, his 3 warriors there and whittled away with the crossbow shooting. They charged my warlord. He stacked up his board with everything he had, and he killed my warlord, but my warlord also killed the 3 guys. So it meant they all died. The objective was left on the ground. So Sam was getting bonus points for killing my warlord there, but I comfortably had 3 objectives, and he wasn't really going to be able to get any more. So I took the game well there. But yeah, he played it well. Romans are tricky with only 4 points. They're quite hard to make them work, and I was really impressed at how Sam managed his impetus, because when I use Romans, I always run out of impetus and can't do much later on. But he was managing it and managing to charge it up again to do some attacks on me. So it worked pretty well. But I took the win there, and went into the final game. So I had 2 wins. I knew I was going to be quite high up on the placing now, even though they were both small wins. I thought we do quite well. And the final game was going to be kind of a standard clash of warlords, but again, 2 people on each side. The bonus points this time were going to be for whichever person on that team had the fewest models remaining. So I threw that in just for a bit of fun for the last one, to really encourage some carnage. Don't hang back. You really want to get stuck in and fighting the melees, really. So you're getting bonus points if you had the fewest models remaining on your side. And it also encouraged people to kind of take some Hearthguard into the event, really, because they're a bit out of favour in the meta at the moment. So to encourage some Hearthguard taking. Well, I didn't have any Hearthguard, but I was teamed up with Ian Mackay, and he had Carolingians, and he had 3 points of Hearthguard and then 1 point of Warriors with Bows. It's a real kind of small elite list. Carolingians were popular at this event. We'd see 4 players using the Carolingian board here, so we knew they were pretty good, because people had spotted that there was some clever things you could do with the Prolium for this small event, because you can kind of spend a first turn putting your 3 dice in your Prolium, powering that up, and then for the rest of the game, you only needed to generate 5 Saga dice, which you can do with 4-point lists quite comfortably. So you weren't wasting any Saga dice generation each turn, and you could use the same few abilities really over and over. That Ardour to get fatigue-free activations for a single common dice is amazing on the Carolingian board, and Defensor, we're getting the 4 defense dice for a single. Uncommon dice is great, yeah. So 4 people had spotted Carolingians were good. So yes, Ian Mackay, a veteran Saga player. He'd been off the tournament scene for a while, but it's good to see him back playing Saga again. So I was partnered with him, happy to be with him. And then I saw who we were playing against, and it was the combined team of the Saga Master, Andy Lyons, with Welsh, and the current Saga Grand Melee champion for the UK, Chris Ainsworth, also with Carolingians. So it was a really tough opponents to play against. So we had a bit of a laugh about that, and I thought we could have had a chance in this game, but I think I messed up a little bit with the deployment and with terrain, really, because I was the first player. I had to play all of my warband first, and I kind of got some hard cover just slightly to the right, and deployed around that and to the centre of the table. And then Chris and Andy had to deploy all of their forces, and they deployed everything in the far left corner. So it was a real refused flank approach there. They'd got everything in the corner. So Ian could deploy his last, so he had his kind of a little bit back because he had those Hearthguard. They'd be vulnerable to too much shooting early on in the game, so he had them back behind my warriors to begin with. So that was a setup, and we just saw this, me and Ian, and we thought, well, what do we do? Do we hang back and wait for them to come to us, because they're quite a long way from my forces, really? But Andy had a lot of mounted Welsh. He had 4 points of warriors in his list, all mounted with javelins, of course. Chris was playing Capetian Franks for his Carolingians, so he was running a unit of 8 warriors with crossbows, 12 levy javelins, a unit of foot Hearthguard and a unit of foot warriors there. So we knew that obviously with the Carolingian shooting and the Welsh shooting, they were going to be able to hit us a lot, and the Welsh were going to hit us and run away. So if we didn't take the fight to them, they were just going to pick us off and win by attrition, really. So we kind of had to move up, really, and attack. At least that's what I thought anyway. So maybe that was a wrong decision. So started to kind of move up, advance my warriors up to get them, and try and Ian could follow up with some of his Hearthguard, trying to charge up his Prolium, of course, during that first turn. And then during the first turn for Andy and Chris, they was able to lay some fire into us, and of course some Welsh manoeuvring, Welsh trickery with those activation reaction abilities, and they proved really strong in this, the Welsh activation reactions, because they could react to any of our actions, of course, and we've got a lot more activations because we've got two players, so he could really choose the right moment to react to that. So we really could not catch Andy. I think Ian managed to get a charge. He had some mounted Hearthguard, so he managed to get a charge on some of the Welsh and really battle one of the units at one point, but of course they suffered with the return fired shooting. My Moors moved up in the middle. One unit charged some of Chris's javelins, javelin levy, trying to kill them early. If I charged up the board, I thought I could try and wipe them out, and unfortunately did virtually nothing. It was a real fluffed roll, even with the Carolingian defence. I thought I would kill a few, but it was a total disaster. That my unit was left in the middle and just picked apart by shooting. Of course, I was using hasty shot to get the defence dice and put fatigue onto the unit that shoots me, but they were pretty smart with that, really, because Andy was avoiding shooting me because he didn't want the fatigue on his mobile horseman. Chris didn't mind getting the fatigue because he could activate with Ardour and get kind of fatigue-free activations, and it wasn't going to bother him so much getting some fatigue. So it wasn't quite as effective. That they were picking their targets really cleverly. Those two, they obviously were master the board, and they kind of almost won from the setup, really, to be honest. Really, I should have seen it coming a bit, but so in the end they won strongly against me and Ian. And Ian with his only Hearthguard and warriors had really lost a lot, because the bow armed warriors. Andy was able to sort of position his warriors for a charge with one of his reaction abilities, and then charge in his turn charge into the bow armed warriors and kill lots of them. So yeah, we didn't have a lot left by the end, and Ian pointed out that his entire warband was smaller than just one of my units. My levy crossbowmen who didn't really suffer anything. I think they only lost one guy in them because they were out of position, and another of my warrior units was totally out of position and didn't do anything the whole game. So yeah, outmaneuvered in that one and outplayed. So Andy and Chris won that one, and I think they both won. I think Chris got the bonus points from a few models there, but didn't matter because Andy was so far ahead in points. He managed the big win there and won the whole tournament on that. So congrats to him. He played it really well. Welsh great in this in this kind of partnership games because of their reaction abilities, and they were mounted Welsh, so kind of it needed concerted efforts really to block their actions and stop them moving. They might have been a bit trickier using them in the crossing the river game because they with those pinch points they'd be tricky to manoeuvre around, and then grabbing the objectives. I'm not sure he'd fared that, but he managed to win those ones as well. And then so in the Clash of Worlds, where it was open playing field, open battlefield, they had too much free reign really. So we should have thought about that a bit more with the terrain and boxed them in. But anyway, it was a really good event. Fun games, really, all of them. I'd taken Moors, and my thinking behind that was that they're pretty solid in defence, and they'd be good at grabbing those objectives or holding the bridges for the river crossing. And also, I thought that I've got the Discord ability to throw out some fatigue, and I thought they'd be a good partner for someone, because if I can throw out fatigue on someone, on an enemy unit at a distance, then my partner maybe have a really good aggressive faction that can charge and use that fatigue to batter the enemy. So that was kind of the theory, but in practice I barely used Discord. I only used it in the 1v1 game, just because the 2 dice to use it is quite a lot of an investment in these, when your warband only generates 5 dice for your 4 units and your warlord. So it was a bit pricey to use, so I didn't do it much. Unlike normally when I play Moors, I tend to use Discord quite a bit more when you've got a full size warband. But it was fine. They were fairly solid for Moors, and we saw a good variety of factions. As I say, quite a few Carolingians for the reasons I said earlier, but otherwise there were quite a nice variety of factions. We were allowing invasions, crusades, and Viking eras. No mercenaries, but otherwise, there are lots of factions to choose from there. A great event. This doubles format worked really well, and Perry over in Canada also borrowed the format to run Broken Oaths in Toronto, and he had a good event there. It was great, and I kind of borrowed the doubles idea from Louis down in London. He's run a few of the Battle Brothers events, which have gone really well. Great for new players because they can kind of talk to each other and plan out their moves and help each other out a bit. So it's worked really well for him. But for our event, I was a little bit wary of players choosing their partner for the tournament, because if you choose the same partner for the whole tournament, 2 really experienced players could go together and they could dominate, and also they could choose particular factions which might pair particularly well together. I'm sure we can all imagine some pretty nasty combinations of factions together. I don't know, like Huns and Spanish. Huns throw on the fatigue, Spanish move it around. All that moving and trickery would be quite hard to play against. Or Anglo-Danes thrown to the mix to throw out fatigue at a distance, and Moors to add more fatigue, so they could Pagan Rus to shut down most of the board, and then partnered with someone like Mutz, who can fight really, really well up close. So there'll probably be some crazy combinations, lots I haven't thought of there, which would be overpowered together. So by having a random partner with someone means we avoid those deliberate, difficult partnerships together, and it means it's the kind of new player will be paired maybe with an experienced player. They can help each other out and share advice there, and you also have to it provides a kind of a challenge for more experienced players, in that they come to the event, they don't know who they're working with, they need to work out the best way to achieve victory with their ally. I also really like the fact that we've got this kind of bonus points for the secondary objective. So although you really want to win with your ally, you've also got an eye on the bonus points. If you want to win the tournament altogether, you need to keep your eye on them. So the format worked really well, and anyone is very welcome to borrow it and run their own Broken Oaths event wherever you want. Change it round however you want that suits your local scene. And I would advise, though, keep an eye on the secondary objectives for tiebreakers, because we did find quite a few ties on points, and we had to work out based on the secondary objectives and the points scored in different rounds, really, to resolve any tiebreakers. We did have to look at those quite a lot, because there's quite a few tied players on points. But the format did really work really well, and was very enjoyable for everyone involved. So highly recommend if you want to give it a try to run your own Broken Oaths. There'll be more detailed reports on the games in Jim's blog, so check out that as well. We'll put a link below the text for this video. Yeah, take care, Saga fans, and we shall see you another time. Goodbye.